going?
We're live on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the YouTube to update. All right, looks like we are good there too. All right, welcome in everyone to an episode of the Batfoot Podcast. Damien, David, and Matt here. As you can see, our beautiful faces, all of us today. I don't know how long it's been since all three of us had our cameras on, but it's awesome. So today we're going to recap the wild card series that we've had the past 3 days, which have been everything wild, I guess. I mean, they were pretty fun. And then preview and predict the division series that start tomorrow. And then we had a surprise hiring yesterday that we'll hit on at the end of the show, just to mention. We'll follow up more on that next episode. But David, before we jump into the whole wild card series and stuff, what was your kind of overview of how the games looked, and did the whole wild card series bracket go the way you kind of thought it was going to?
I had 3 of the 4. Yes, right? I think that's exactly how I thought it was going to go, right? I had the Brewers in 3, and that was the one I missed. But I think I hit all the other ones square on the head. I had the Tigers over the Astros, and I was the only one who had the Tigers over the Astros. And then I think we agreed on the rest of them: um, Royals and Padres. Padres and Braves series. I'll touch on next. I'll let Matt talk a little bit more about that one. That went exactly as I was expecting. Right? Padres just clowned on the Braves. It feels right. But the one that we just nailed was the winner of the Royals Orioles game 1, a pitching duel for the ages between Cole Reagans and Corbin Burns. Man, shutout performance from Cole Reagans, 1 run by Corbin Burns, and Burns goes 8 innings. It's been a long time since we've seen a starting pitcher go 8 innings in a game in the playoffs, and the winner of that series immediately took game 2 and won it. And that's just what we said last week. And it was a pitching duel all the way. Royals pitching was a little better than the Orioles pitching, and that was the kind of game changer. And that was what we talked about last week was, the Orioles are going to have to out hit the Royals pitching and then find some stopping on their own, and they couldn't do it. And the Orioles go down despite having 90 plus wins for the second year in a row in the wild card series. So disappointing, I think, for the Orioles for sure, but Royals moving on. Tigers moved on too. That was fun. The Tigers series was exciting.
Yeah, I'm with you, David. Those were some fun games. I believe that Orioles Royals game 1 was, I think that was the deepest Corbin Burns has pitched into a game this year. I think it was. I think he went. Did he go 8 in the third?
8.
I think he went just 8 plus.
Eight started the second one. Yeah, and started the ninth.
I knew he got pulled in the beginning of the ninth. I didn't remember if he got an out or not. But yeah, Corbin Burns pitched the most innings he's pitched all year, and they still lost by 1 run. That series didn't surprise me too much that the Royals won, but it surprised me that the Orioles just didn't score at all in the whole series. Like, I think they scored 1 run in 2 games or something. Yeah, so that surprised me. It was on a homer by Cedric Mullins, I believe. Which is kind of like, I mean, Henderson didn't score, didn't do anything. Rutschman didn't really do anything. Like, all those young guys we've talked about all year, Colton Cowser and Jordan Westberg, all these guys, like, they just didn't show up. Santander didn't show up. I mean, that was disappointing. Even though I wasn't shocked that the Royals were able to shut them down game 1 because Cole Reagans is really, really good. But game 2, and Lugo's good too, like very good. But like, I'm just surprised that in 2 games the Orioles offense just didn't do anything. And then, the Astros Tigers was really fun. I mean, it seemed to me like a series where the Astros were probably the better team, but the Tigers just kept getting hits at the right times. And it's part of that postseason randomness type thing where anything can happen in the postseason. And the Tigers got it done when it counted, and the Astros just couldn't get it done. I mean, you had game 1, the Astros hit what probably would have been a walk-off by Jason Hayward, who got snatched by the first baseman out of the air, and it was like a 106-mile-an-hour line out with guys on second and third and 2 outs, and that ended the game when it probably would have been an Astros win. And then game 2, you had just the Astros kind of fell apart late with the bullpen. And Josh Hader, who, by the way, I don't think it's been quiet as talked about this year, but Josh Hader he's still very good, but he had a 3.80 ERA this year for Houston. and he's the highest paid reliever in baseball history. So, there's a little bit of, I don't know if I'd call it super major concern there, but like, this is 2 out of 3 years where he hasn't been that great. And last year he was fantastic, but that's just something for Houston to look at going into this offseason, and that just, how sure are you with Hader? Because like
Yeah.
I don't know. He'll probably be good again next year. I mean, he's a good reliever. He's still very good. His peripherals are still good. He gave up a lot of home runs this year, but yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, that surprised me. The Tigers pieced together the pitching. I'm very interested to see what their pitching plan is for the ALDS. I mean, they literally started Screwball in game 1, which obviously Screwball is fantastic and pitched deep into the game and pitched extremely well. And then game 2 was just like throw whoever out there you can find. And they're not going to be able to do that every single game once you get into these longer series. So I'm going to be interested to see. I mean, I don't think Reese Olson pitched yet. I don't think
Yeah,
Casey Mize did. I know that Casey Mize didn't pitch in the wild card. It'll be interesting to see what they do, but we can talk about that here in a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, AJ Hinch today said that it was either going to be Olson or Holton to start the game for game 1. And then he said Scooble will go game 2.
Yeah, that's
and
what I
then
figured that.
He's like, after that, I don't know yet. But it seems like Olson probably would be the best bet to start game 1 just because he can give that depth there. I mean, they might do an opener like Holton for an inning and then Olson come in after. But it does seem like some part of a longer-term pitching plan might be for game 1 and 2 there, at least between Olson and Screwball. But
just an absurd situation for Detroit. I mean, you know who would really be helpful to start game 1 is the Dodgers starter for game 1, Jack Flaherty, right? So actually, he switched. They switched him. They switched him off of. I'm mad about that. We'll talk about that in our preview. But yeah, I guess the other series was that the Brewers and Mets series, 3 games. The only one that went to 3 games, and I want to lead that with a question for you guys: is do we need these 3-game sets? We've seen, I think, 10 of 12 go 2 games in 3 years, just 2-game sweeps, and then we've had 2 3-game sets.
Yeah, the 2 3-game sets have both been Mets.
Yeah, they sure have.
That's great.
I would rather have it be a 3-game rather than a 1-game.
Yeah, me too.
I think the 3 games still anything can happen, but it limits the randomness of 1 game. Like if a pitcher has a blow up or something, like you can still rebound from that a little bit. So I'd rather have it be the 3-game than 1 game, but it's just kind of part of what postseason baseball is. There's randomness to it. I mean, even then, we go 3-5. Like even then, like would you rather have a 5-game series in the DS or would you rather have a 7-game series? Me personally, I'd probably rather have a 7-game series, but the 5-game series just kind of helps fit the schedule and build the suspense through the postseason.
Yeah, I'm with you, Damien, on that. I think just that 3 games, it reduces the amount of because the thing is, like if you're the 4 seed in the wild card, if you're the top wild card team, who you might win 100 games and be the top wild card. I mean, we saw the Dodgers, in 2021, they won 107 games. They were a wild card team.
105 because I think the Giants won 106.
They won 106. Yeah, they won 105 games, whatever it was. It was over 100 by a pretty good margin. And they were a wild card team, and they had a 1-game playoff against the Cardinals team that was good, I guess. They were under 500 in August and went on a 15-game winning streak and made the playoffs. And that game very easily could have been won by the Cardinals and knocked out a 106-win team in 1 game because of just whatever.
It took until a walk-off home run.
It was a walk-off home run by Chris Taylor. Yeah, I remember that game well. I was watching it because the opponent, the next team up was Wade.
That was the Braves.
That was when they played them. It was the Giants. The Dodgers played the Giants first, then the Braves.
Yeah,
but it was the Braves were on the other side of the bracket. They were in the postseason, so I was paying close attention to the Dodgers because I thought they were the best team in that year. But but that 1 game is just so random. I mean, we've seen it so many times with just a really great team get beat, and it just be random and. By a team that's not very good, and you start to if you put in those 3-game series, if you might have a series where the Mets and the Brewers are very evenly matched, and it goes 3 games. You might have some series where it's evenly matched teams, or the better team even loses in 2. That's probably what happened with the Royals and Orioles. I mean, the Orioles were the better team all year. They won way more games than the Royals, and they ended up losing in 2 games. But it also reduces the amount of randomness of, say, like last year, if the Marlins had snuck out a game against the Phillies, who were by far better than the Marlins last year. That just it kind of it's one of those things where it's like, like you don't want to rant some garbage team to get in there and then randomly have one game where they win. I mean, 3-game series is random enough, but that one game, it can be kind of ridiculous. So
Yeah,
I'm with you.
definitely.
I'm with the 3-game series, even though I think part of that whole it's always been 2 games is kind of randomness too. I really do. We haven't been doing this that long, so
Yeah.
um,
I guess the logical follow up, and it's the follow up that the Astros fans, the Orioles fans, right, are the Brewers fans, and maybe not the Braves fans this year, given the injuries, but those other 3 teams, right, I think all 3 of them were technically favorites in the series and ended up losing. They would go in and tell you, well, we don't like the postseason format, right? It encouraged but all of those teams were at home. Astros were at home, yeah, and they lost 2 games at home. Like, to me, you've been afforded every advantage. You have to go out and win 2 baseball games, and we play 3-game series all year. If you can't go out and win your baseball, your 2-game set,
it's one of those things
then
that
you're going home.
it makes it makes the regular season matter more, that
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, if you're the Astros, like, you could have won more games. You could have not started like, what were they, like 17-30 or something with the start of the season? Like,
Right.
you could have just not started that badly, and then you would be playing whoever won between the Guardians and the Royals or something. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things where it's just the divisional aspect of it means play better.
Yeah.
The aspect of, like, I don't like giving that extra team a chance most years, like, because it's just sometimes it's just adding another team that's not very good, that more randomness can happen. But, like, from the aspect of, like, the third team not getting an easy free pass into the division series, I'm fine with that. If you're gonna do it with this format, do it like this. So I'm good with it. But
I think the only thing that could be said maybe is if you wanted to reseed after this round, but or reseed after each round, I guess. But it wouldn't really matter, I guess, except just the wild card round to this round. But it just seems a lot of the times that the number 1 seed gets the disadvantage in a little bit because, like, of the way it plays. If the 6 seed were to win, they get to face the 2 seed rather than the 1 seed.
Yeah,
because we don't reseed.
Right. And also,
difference.
the last thing too is, and I know that this is going to sound like a biased thing, but it could happen to anybody. For the love of God, have more than 1 day between the end of the regular season and the first wild card game. We don't need to have a situation where you've got the Mets having to travel from Atlanta to Milwaukee to Atlanta to Milwaukee to wherever in, like, less than a week. Like, give it an extra day, because you never know. October's the middle of September's the middle of hurricane season. Like, this could happen in Atlanta. It could happen in Miami. It could happen in Houston. I know those are dome stadiums, but if a hurricane hits, they're not going to play games. Yeah, so it could happen in Washington. It could happen anywhere on the East Coast. You could have a hurricane this time of year. You could have, just if anything happens that has to cause postponement, it could just be bad weather in general. Like, you don't want to have a double header played after playing on Sunday, play a double header Monday, then play again on Tuesday. And obviously the Mets, I'm very impressed by the fact that they were able to figure out a way to win in spite of that. But, like, that's not something that needs to happen. Like, start the wild card games on, like, Wednesday or Thursday. It's okay if the postseason goes an extra week. It's fine. I mean, I know there's all these, and it maybe I know there's all these things about, like, time off between games and stuff, but I mean, there's no perfect solution when you give teams a bye in baseball, but just don't have this situation come up again where you have to play double headers the day before the postseason starts.
Well, the problem is it's not the 1 day on it like that. It's not the 1 day between the season ending to the wild card thing. It's MLB not being proactive in the meantime. They could have easily avoided the situation by playing a doubleheader on the Monday, knowing that the games on Tuesday and Wednesday were going to get postponed.
Yeah,
Easily at that point.
yeah, but
Like,
the thing is, like, you just never. It's not necessarily that this specific case. I'm just talking about in general. Like, there's lots of times hurricanes end up popping up, or tropical storms end up popping up and causing an issue like that when they weren't really expected to. I mean, it's just something they could build in a little bit of contingency for it. Like, by just give one extra off day. You don't even have to start it on like Thursday. I mean, or something. You could start the postseason on Wednesday through Friday. Start the next round on Sunday. I mean,
yeah, the thing is, they don't want to start their playoffs going against football. Game ones are on Saturday.
Well,
I mean,
that's MLB's problem then, that they won't do anything about that.
It's not a problem. It's the fact that you're never going to beat football. Like, baseball is not going to beat Sunday football.
Yeah,
it's not. Yeah. So you wanted to try everything you can to avoid playing on Sunday football, Monday night football. Like, it's the hard part.
Saturday, Thursday. I mean,
if only there was a Friday right now that you could be playing baseball, but instead, I'm sure you guys are listening to us.
That's true.
They didn't schedule anything today, and now they're going to have to play games on Sunday and Monday.
Well, because they got to give an off day in between, David. I mean,
they do.
Maybe we should just make it 2 off days in between.
Well, I mean, you know, like we were talking about. I mean, if you had a rain out like yesterday, I mean, obviously the Mets and Brewers are in a dome stadium, but say that game was in New York and they had a rain out, like, then what are you going to do if you're scheduled to play today? Like,
right.
You know, you have to have some form of a contingency for that.
And that's where what Matt said goes, I think, well, is, you know, you should probably bake in some more time between the games, potentially start the next round this Monday, and then have staggered the games out this week a little bit more, to where, you know, in the event of, we've got to play our doubleheader on Monday, well, now we can give those teams a day off and shuffle the schedule down so that series gets played a day later. And it ends up being more time off for those teams that get time off. But, you know, I think I'm interested now to see whether or not, like, those teams that have been off are going to be impacted like the Braves and the Dodgers were last year. Because that's the big question, I think. And then we can transition into kind of our series preview for the NL and ALDS.
Yeah. There's always been the topic about does the layoff hurt? Does the layoff not hurt? Like, baseball is such a game of routine, so you think it hurts a little bit. That's why you try to minimize the amount of it. But at the end of the day, it's also good because, you know, had the Dodgers started earlier, like, they might not have Freddie Freeman because he sprained his ankle.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it gives you a little bit of time so those guys can get healthy,
and your
pitching in order. But it's just one of those things.
So, I guess we still need to talk about the National League wild card, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, we kind of went over everything. Like, we did it in a little bit more of a hodgepodge way than I had planned coming into the show. We kind of just said it right away. But just going over, we talked the Mets 1 in 3 there. It was a wild game. They won the 3 game. All of them really were. The game 1, it was 8-4 8-4 Mets. The second game was the Jackson Churio show. Had 2 homers, man. Looked like a superstar there. Game 3 was wild in its own right because it had Pete Alonso dropping a ball to help give the Brewers a lead, a foul ball that they ended up capitalizing on, and then him hitting a 3-run homer off of Devin Williams, who was tipping his pitches to give them the lead at that point.
What it was?
Then, he was tipping his fastball and his changeup.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, John Boy did a breakdown on it today, and even the you could see the coach before told Pete Alonso that's his changeup.
Yeah. You know, I saw the coach talking to Pete Alonso right before, and I figured it was just hey, this is what they're seeing right now. Like, just as in, like, this is what the pitch sequence he's throwing and stuff. I didn't know that he was. I didn't even notice about the tipping. That's interesting. Yeah.
So it was very slight, but what it was is whenever he was doing his fastball, his hand was a lot deeper in the glove, and his changeup was out, and then the glove was, like, on a fastball was slightly closer to his chin, and the changeup was slightly away.
Yep.
So it's just very, very slight, and like you had to, like, very deep concentrate. But baseball players are so good nowadays. If you give them this much, they find it, and they're able to do it. So, so wild games there. So the Mets ended up winning that one from that point. It was a big shock to the Brewers. I mean, from there, but the other ones we kind of said, I mean, the Padres series kind of went how we thought. The Braves just looked like a defeated team at times.
I was surprised at how well the Braves played in that series, to be honest. On I was shocked that they only gave up 3 runs in game 1. I mean, the pitching situation, it was a pitching of AJ Smith-Shawver, and then it was Jesse Chavez and Aaron Bummer, I think, and Luke Jackson. I think it was 4 runs at the end of the game, but I was shocked that they didn't just get run out of the stadium. And then game 2, they came back and almost won. I mean, they were I thought the Braves were the better team in game 2, to be honest. They were hitting the ball really hard and everything. They just, the Max Fried had a bad start. The Padres had a bunch of infield hits, which is something the Padres do well. I don't want to call it lucky because they have a lot of contact and speed. They do it well. Damien's frustrated about the Padres already, so
it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. They're gonna.
Here it comes.
Luis Arias is gonna have like 20 infield hits.
Arias isn't an infield hit guy. He's to the outfield. He's like the slowest guy on the team.
Everybody was an infield hit guy in game 2 with the Braves, but the Braves just the offense was a mess, and it really was. And I'll say this about the Braves season: the offense was a mess all year. Even when they were healthy, it was a problem. They had a lot of issues. The strikeout rate was way up. They just struggled, and it wasn't surprising to see them get beat. And Padres looked good. That crowd in San Diego was incredible. They were fantastic. And we'll talk about it. The issues that they have with health because Joe Musgrove is now out for a long time. We'll talk about that probably in our preview of the Dodgers-Padres series. But yeah, definitely, the Mets-Brewers was a crazy series, and the other one was it was whatever. So.
Yeah. Well, we'll pretty much just wrap up there. We've talked about everything way too long on that area. So looking ahead to the series or the division series, it's kind of weird this year because we're actually going to have 3 division matchups in the division series. So we have Tigers and Guardians, we have Mets, Phillies, and we have Dodgers, Padres, all division rival series going on in this. And then we have Kansas City and the Yankees. So I guess we'll start with Detroit and Cleveland, and we'll just go through the AL and then jump over to the NL from that part. But David, how do you see the Detroit and Cleveland series going, especially knowing that what AJ Hinch said with the pitching matchups from that point, and then how Cleveland has staggered their way through the play or through their season so far?
Yeah, how's Cleveland's matchup going, or like starting pitching matchup? Do we know who they're running out? We have to, right?
Tanner Bybee starting game 1.
Yeah, I think it would be Bybee and then Williams.
I would think so.
Wow.
They haven't announced game 2 yet.
And Cleveland's got the home advantage as well in this series, which means games 1 and 2 played in Cleveland, 3 and 4 played in Detroit, 5 played in Cleveland.
Yep.
So just also Tyler Holton has been announced as game 1 for the Tigers.
Okay. And probably Riesel. It probably is an opener with Riesels and going behind. Yeah. It's I picked the Tigers via vibe, purely pretty much, and they went and responded with, this just feels like a team of destiny. I think someone posted the screenshot that the current the Tigers roster is being made up of players being paid less than Josh Hader is this year. The whole 26-man roster, all of them. So
and they didn't have one free agent on their wild card roster.
Oh wow!
I just baseball is a weird sport. This is more Moneyball than the Oakland A's could ever muster, because that team was spectacular with the MVP and a great pitching staff and stuff. But this run by Detroit, it'll either end with them winning the World Series or they're going to get unceremoniously bounced by somebody. It might be the Guardians here, it might be the Yankees, or they're just winning it all. And there's just an unstoppable freight train. This does remind me of Seattle a couple of years ago, where I got very keyed in that Seattle finally won a playoff game. They broke the schneid, they made the playoffs, they won a game, and then they immediately got just swamped by the Astros and kicked out of the playoffs. That feels like what's going to happen here is that Cleveland, even if the starting rotation for Cleveland is not particularly experienced, Cleveland's bullpen is the best bullpen in baseball. Emmanuel Clase is about to pitch 3 innings like 4 times in the playoffs here. and just shut down 12 innings pitched of just elite. Like, we might see a reliever win a series MVP here at some point. Like, if Clase is good. And then this offense with Jose Ramirez, who's very close to 40-40 this season, and Steven Kwan's still very good. I'm not going to pick against the Guardians here. I think this is a better team. I feel like the dream ends. The Tigers made it. They beat the Astros, and that's the end of the vibes for me. It just doesn't line up for them very well. I'm going to go with the Guardians. It's a better team, obviously, but I think the Guardians might have something with that stadium tunneling, the wind and everything, and they have the home field advantage too. And I'm not betting against Jose Ramirez to make a big impact on the series.
Yeah, this is a really interesting series in the way that like these teams are 4 games.
4 games.
I gotcha. Yeah, this is interesting in the way that these teams are a lot more evenly matched than I think you might think. The Guardians won like 92 games, but Cleveland had the 19th best pitching staff in the majors by WAR, and their offense was the 10th worst in the majors by WAR. And Detroit had a top 10 pitching staff, and their offense was very similar to Cleveland's on the season. And they played in the same division, so their competition was similar. So it's really interesting to me that these teams are a lot more evenly matched, even though I think Cleveland, just by most accounts, is a huge favorite right now. Cleveland's got that elite bullpen, and that's a big deal in the postseason because you're not resting pitchers. You're not giving guys days off. Like, during the season, you might see if Clase pitches 2 games in a row, that third game he might not pitch. But now, that third game he's pitching, and Clase is really good. So that's going to be a big deal here. But, I mean, I like the depth of the Detroit bullpen. I think the biggest thing to me is will the Cleveland Guardians starters hold up well enough to where they're able to – I don't want to kind of hide the bullpen a little bit, because I've seen some of these series like this with a team like the Guardians that's built this way, where you start pitching your reliever every single day. Well, guys, the other teams start to see the reliever. They've seen him multiple times. It's almost like having a pitcher go 3 times through a lineup. You've kind of noticed that, and you're also asking him to do something he's not used to. So, if their starting pitching can hold up enough to where like Clase can go for 1 inning in game 1 and 1 inning in game 2, maybe he has to go 2 innings in game 3, but if you're just not running him out there over and over and over, that would be a very big help to them, because you see it all the time. These series, these guys run out of gas. I mean, we've seen it so many times. Remember Andrew Miller in the postseason a couple times? Like, Cleveland would run him out there, and he would pitch he'd pitch till his arm fell off. And by game 7, he was just gassed, and everyone had seen him, and he was giving up tanks. That's part of it. David knows what I'm talking about. So, I mean, that's part of just, there's some management still to be had with that bullpen. And I don't know that Detroit has an advantage with their starting staff, especially, I mean, obviously they're starting an opener in game 1, but they do have an ace in the hole in Tarek Skubal, who will go out and get you 6 or 7 innings and hide your bullpen and rest your bullpen when he pitches. So that's going to be very interesting. I think I still got to go with Cleveland here, just because, like David said, I mean, it's hard to bet against Clase. This team's experienced some in the postseason too. I know that Detroit just came off of winning a series in the wild card series, but Cleveland's got Jose Ramirez. I mean, he was on all those playoff teams, the team that went to the World Series. He was a key player for those teams. Andres Jimenez played in the postseason a couple years ago. You've got you've got a team that's got some guys that have been there before. And Detroit, I just don't know that I trust the talent of Cleveland's offense a little bit more than Detroit's. I really do. I mean, Detroit's getting contributions from like Jake Rogers and Matt Vierling, and I just don't know if I trust that, long term. It can happen for 2 games, and it could happen in 3 games in this series. But I think I got to go Cleveland, and I think maybe I think I could see this one going 5 games. I think these teams are really evenly matched.
Yeah, so I agree that these teams are very closely matched, a lot more than people do think. So I wanted to kind of know, looking at it, since this is a division matchup, right? The 3 division matchups, which we're going to talk about. I wanted to go back and look at the season series. So the season series, the Guardians were 7-6 against the Tigers. So it was basically a toss-up at this point. right? So to say that they're very evenly matched, I think is a very, very fair statement to say. Now, what I do think here is that Matt says he trusts Cleveland's offense more, while I actually think I trust Detroit's team more. Not necessarily their offense, but their team as a whole, right? And one thing which it gets kind of played up at times, and other times it probably doesn't. And we were kind of talking pre-show that managers don't always make or break a team, right? But I think this is a series where there's two polar opposites here. You have AJ Hinch, who in the postseason might be the best manager at feel. He knows when to make every single move. He's done it from his time with the Astros all the way through. There's a reason those Astros teams are always so good too. And
Couple of reasons.
Well, a couple of reasons. But you also have Stephen Vogt, who is his first ever season managing, his first ever postseason, right? He was very good at managing a bullpen through the regular season. Managing a bullpen and when to take your starters and feel everything during the postseason and when to make certain moves on offense is a lot different. I think AJ Hinch, now that they won one series, they're going to another series. This team can believe now. And I trust that they have other options that can get them production. You look at the it really comes out, is Jose Ramirez good, and which Josh Naylor is going to show up. The rest of the guys, like, what you're going to get from Steven Kwan, but like you're going to play Kyle Manzardo, Will Brennan, Bo Naylor, Brian Roquillo. Like, I don't trust any of these guys to really make an impact, especially against the way these Tigers pitchers have been pitching and what they just showed against Houston. So for that being said, I'm taking the Tigers in 5.
I'll say one last thing, and then we can move on. The Guardians have got to win Game 1 in this series.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because if you don't win Game 1, you're going to get 2 times you face Tarek Skubal. You have to win, but you have to win one of the 2.
Mm-hmm.
And also Detroit, the way their strategy was, even though they had an off day, they pitched everybody in those first 2 games, and their pitching staff is going to be all available, I'm sure. Yeah. But they've all pitched in like back-to-back games, especially their top guys. So, I think that the further you can distance yourself from that, the better if you're Detroit, and also just that Tarek Skubal starting 2 games. I mean, it's going to be tough if you can't win Game 1. You can maybe get one of the Tarek Skubal games, but you have to be perfect outside of it if you do. So, you've got to win Game 1 if you're Cleveland at home.
Yeah,
it's big.
That's fair. So, so I went Tigers in 5. David went
Cleveland in 4.
Cleveland in 4. Matt, you went Cleveland in 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's jump over to talking about the other American League series, and that is the Royals at the Yankees here. Pitching matchups so far, it's going to be Waka versus Cole in Game 1, and Game 2 going to be Reagans versus Rodon. That's pretty much what's been announced at this point. So, Matt, how do you feel this series is going to go?
I think the Yankees are going to come out and have a good series. I really do. I think the Royals have a solid team. They had a great season. I mean, honestly, this might be the most remarkable bounce back season we've ever seen. I mean, they almost lost as many games as the A's last year. The A's were historically bad. I mean, they lost 106 games. Is that what the Royals lost? It was a ton, and they made the playoffs. Close. They took out the Orioles. It was a big deal, but there's a few things that concern me with the Royals. For one thing, against Baltimore, and the Royals' Achilles heel is their offense. I mean, they've got one guy in their lineup who's hitting, and Vinny Pasquantino just came back, and he played fairly well considering how little he's played, in that series against the Orioles. And you've got those 2 guys, and then Salvador Perez, who's an experienced postseason player, but like you don't have a huge amount of you just don't have a very talented offense in Kansas City right now. Their pitching staff is elite. I mean, was the third base pitching staff in baseball by WAR this year. It was incredible, but their lineup is just not that great. And honestly, I don't think the Yankees are a team that you can just shut down anymore. they've got a lot more balance than they've had with Juan Soto. And used to, you could throw out a bunch of right-handed sliders against the Yankees like the Rays used to do, and you would just tear them up because they had Judge and Stanton and Gleyber Torres, and like that was their whole lineup was just a bunch of right-handed power hitters. But now they've got Juan Soto, and they've got who's also a very good postseason performer. And they've also got, they've got Jazz Chisholm out there now. Like they've got a couple of lefties that are hitting well, and obviously Judge has haven't had a historic year. So um, I think that the Yankee and the Kansas City. The one other thing that concerns me, and I know their pitching staff. Cole Reagans is really good. Lugo's been great. Walker's been good this year. The bullpen concerns me a little bit. They were really good down the stretch, but on the season, that bullpen concerns me just a little bit. I think the Yankees are just way more talented. I mean, they are. It's tough to go into New York and win. I've got the Yankees winning in probably like I'll give the Royals one Cole Reagans game and say game 4 is the end. I think the Yankees win in 4.
That's great because not so fast, my friend.
Oh.
I think the Royals bullpen is an extreme strength. Lucas Urseg closed out both games and looked great. I think he is the best reliever pitching in this series by a mile. I think Clay Holmes and the closing situation in New York is a disaster. They pulled Clay Holmes from the closer's role. They have no bona fide closer going into a postseason series where we're sitting here talking about, like, I've literally picked the better closer last series because I think the bullpen is going to be very important. I'm picking the better closer this series. I'm picking the Royals because, one, the Yankees always kind of choke, and I feel like the Yankees are going to choke again. I think this is, if we're talking talent, the Yankees are a better team. Matt is absolutely correct. They've got the 2 best players in baseball, or 2 of the 4 best players in baseball, but the Royals have one of those other 4, right? With Bobby Witt Jr. And he didn't make a huge impact on this division series. It felt like the pitching led the way. I think it's time for Bobby Witt to come out and have a party. What?
Say he drove in the only run in game.
Oh, that's right. He did. He had the RBI hit.
That doesn't mean he had a great series or anything, but I mean he was still the difference.
He did. Yeah, he did have it. But Bobby Witt's going to be playing great. Vinny Pasquantino came in and got on base a couple of times. Like I think the Royals might be my team of destiny here. And I like I said, I trust this bullpen a lot more than the Yankees bullpen. Now the Yankees have good starters. Garrett Cole, excellent starter, Cy Young Award winner from last year. He was not as good this year, for sure. He's definitely got some holes in his game. And I think this Royals team can get to him. I think they can get to Rodon, right? The righties are the best part of this Royals lineup. Rodon's a lefty. I feel very strongly the Royals are coming in and winning the first 2 games. And then they just have to scrap one more together the rest of the way. So, from there, yeah, I'll say Royals in 5. I'll say the Yankees get 2 back. But I'm going with the Royals in this series. I feel like one of these big teams is going down. The Yankees kind of like to choke in the postseason, and they don't have a bullpen, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the issue with Game 1, I think the Yankees are going to absolutely cook Michael Wacha in Game 1.
That's very possible. Michael Wacha, I do not trust Michael Wacha.
But his stuff, like he's just not a strikeout guy, and you have to get strikeouts against the Yankees because if they are making contact, it's going over the wall. I mean,
I'll say they hit 2 homers off Michael Wacha and still win the game, and the Royals still win. I'll go Juan Soto and Jazz Chisholm.
Me looking at this series, if I want one person with the fate of the universe on the line at bat, I'm choosing Alex Verdugo. I'm just kidding. I'm doing a Max Kellerman right there. But no, I think that David is absolutely right. I trust the Royals bullpen more than I trust the Yankees bullpen, and I think Matt is absolutely right where the Yankees offense just seems like it's too powerful right now and doesn't have any holes in it. Judge has his protection with Soto now. Then whatever you get from Stanton, who has performed in the playoffs relatively well. Yeah. You're going to get Jazz Chisholm in the playoffs, which we've talked about before. Jazz loves the big moment. He's in New York, his first playoff. Like, this could be him taking off that next level and turning into the star we think he should be with his talent level. I think the Yankees are the best team left in the American League. I know they're the 1 seed, but I just don't see any team right now that's going to be able to stop them in the playoffs, given that's left here. I just think the season judges had with Soto, with Jazz, with Stanton still being there, like their pitching, it's not perfect, but I think they have some decent pieces. Like Tommy Kahnle's been good, Mark Leiter's been good, Luke Weaver has been like a stud for them. Like, who thought that Luke Weaver would be the most trusted person in the bullpen in the playoffs? Like, I
Whoever
don't
had him
think
on their fantasy team all season.
I don't know. I don't know if anyone would say that, really. Let's be honest. And I think they're going to be able to find enough pitching. Like, they're even if they give up 4 runs, their offense can easily score 6. Like, that's one thing here where like you might trust the Royals pitching more, but it's like the Royals pitching has to beat this Yankees lineup, which doing that consistently is going to be hard.
I will say I saw the Dodgers last year, right, just fail in the playoffs in this series coming off the break. The Braves last year.
The difference with the Dodgers last year is they had no pitching, and they got taken out of the game. They gave 6 runs in like the first inning back-to-back games or something.
It's just like the Dodgers started injured Clayton Kershaw and Lance Lynn.
I just mean I've seen an elite offense not come out and play in a 3-game set in the postseason.
Yeah.
Plenty of time, or a 5-game set in the postseason as recently as last year.
Oh yeah.
That's my defense on picking the Royals when inevitably they get swept by the Yankees here.
Yeah, I think the Yankees in 4 is where I'm going to go with this. I think the Royals are able to take the Cole Reagans game, but other than that, I just don't. I don't think it's going to. I just don't think the the Royals have enough offense at this moment, right? Like, had you said that Pasquantino wasn't just coming off of a broken finger and they had a couple other guys in that lineup that were consistently solid, then fine. But it is Bobby Witt has to beat you, and then like pretty much nobody else at this moment. Where the Yankees have 4 or 5 guys that I can confidently say like they could beat you themselves in this game, in this series.
Mm.
So I'll go Yankees in 4 for that one. So let's jump over to talking about the Mets and the Phillies series now. Matt, you have a very good recollection of both of these teams, having played them a lot this season. So why don't you tell us what we should be looking for in the Braves and Phillies series, the Phillies and Mets, and how you think it's going to shape up?
Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting one for sure. I think the Phillies, the first big piece of news that came out today, Kodai Senga is actually going to start game 1 for the Mets, which is shocking because he has not pitched since he's only pitched like 3 innings this year, right? Like he pitched
like
that
5, I think. Yeah, it's like 5.
He pitched in that one game and then he got shut down again with injury. Apparently, he's been throwing to hitters down in the spring training complex in Florida, and he's ready to go and see what they can get from him. And so the biggest question between these two teams is the Mets starting pitching, because you've got him and then you've got Manaea and Luis Severino, who are fine pitchers. They had good seasons, especially considering where they've been over the past few years, but they're not like ace level, like these guys that you think of that are going to carry you in the postseason, like a couple of the guys the Phillies have. I mean, the Phillies with Zach Wheeler, and they've got, Ranger Suarez has been a fantastic postseason performer, and then you've got, Aaron Nola has been great in the postseason at times, and the Phillies have some of these postseason guys. The Mets don't really have that. Kodai Senga is a guy they think might be that. So can you get a big time start out of Kodai Senga? How stretched out is he? How ready to go is he? That's going to be a big deal in this series.
I love his quote today, by the way. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, he basically said, like if they want me to come out there and throw to 2 hitters, that's fine. If they want me to throw 200 pitches, then I'll do that too. Like I thought that was cool. But yeah, it's interesting, and I think you look at the Phillies lineup, they just have a lot of postseason performers in their lineup. I mean, they've got, Harper's been great in the postseason. You look at like Brandon Marsh has been very good in the postseason. I mean, Schwarber's been good in the postseason. Trey Turner. They've got guys who have been great in the postseason for their careers. I guess I guess Nick Castellanos has typically been pretty good in the postseason too. I mean, he's been inconsistent. Last year he had like 4 games where he was like the best hitter on the planet in the postseason, and then he went like 0 for 30 in the championship series or something. So
Yeah.
he's just inconsistent. But either way, they've been there all year. They're experienced. They've been through the division series like what 3 years in a row, 2 years in a row. I just the pitching's lined up well. They've been the best team in the National League most of the year, considering the Dodgers' injuries. I know the Dodgers ended up with a slightly better record, but I mean, I think the Phillies, talent-wise, right now, especially with their pitching staff, is maybe slightly better. I'll be surprised if the Mets can hold it. And the Mets bullpen too is only Edwin Diaz right now. So, I mean, the rest of that bullpen it's okay, but they're not. The Mets pitching staff is just not all that good. So, and I think the Mets offense can cause some problems, but I think the Phillies will end up getting this done, and I would not be surprised if it was a sweep. But I'll say they do it in. I'll say they do it in 4. It's hard to predict the sweep. I'll say they do it in 4.
Yeah, I am going to be team Phillies on this one, and I'm going to be picking the best left-handed hitting postseason performer of all time, Kyle Schwarber, to take over the mantle from David Ortiz and continue on that path, because he has won a bunch of playoff games in his career, and he is a major step up in the playoffs, does Kyle Schwarber. And I'll pull up the stats here if I can, but he's set the record for most homers in the postseason.
He has 20 playoff homers. He's 245, 375 on base, 557 slugging, a 148 WRC plus.
Yeah, Damien had it on the money. Kyle Schwarber is the X factor in this series. The Mets' best pitchers are all righty.
Yeah.
Except for Jose Quintana,
Minaya.
and Minaya. Yeah, but I was thinking of
Severino and Senga. Yeah.
Severino, Diaz, all righties. Kyle Schwarber is going to get to feast, and he's also fine against lefties. Is Kyle Schwarber? He's homered off plenty of lefties, and these lefties don't scare a guy like Kyle Schwarber. The Phillies are a very good team, and I'll leave it at that so we can keep moving. Their pitching is really good. Their bullpen is better now than it used to be. I think that was their weakness a few times in the last couple of trips to the postseason, but they've definitely started to correct that. Carlos Estevez is back there. I'm gonna go Phillies in the sweep. I'm gonna pick the sweep.
Yeah, I'll say that the Phillies bullpen is better than it has been, but they still have some. There's still some concerns with me there, but I don't think it's especially deep.
Well, but when you get to
the Rangers won the World Series with 3 people last year.
I picked the Phillies.
When you get to the playoffs, you only need 4 to 5 relievers.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about Estevez, Jeff Hyman, Strom, Alvarado, like I think that's good enough to get through, especially with having guys like Wheeler, Nola, and Suarez who consistently go 6+ innings in starts. Like if you're getting 6 to 7 out of those guys, and then you limit the amount of innings that bullpen has to throw for those 5 guys, I think it's easy. So like I said, in division matchups, I wanted to look at what the season series looked like. Phillies and Mets were 7-6 also in season series. There's a little bit of luck in there, obviously here and there, but I think the way that the Mets just had to go through this gauntlet, right? It's been surprising the way they've handled it so far, but I think you're running into a very, very good team here. And you might be able to sneak a game out, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to beat Zach Wheeler twice, Aaron Nola, who is on his game, and Ranger Suarez. Like, you might be able to steal the Christopher Sanchez game, but even the Phillies made a smart play there in starting Sanchez game 2 at home because his home road splits are terrible, right? Like, he has like a 2.20 ERA at home and a 5 ERA on the road, and they were like, hey, we're going to start you at home. But I think this Phillies lineup, it's just trying to consistently get out Schwarber, Trey Turner, Harper, those 3 at the top of the lineup, and then just going down Bohm's had clutch performances before. Stotts had some clutch hits before. JT Realmuto's been clutch before. Marsh has proven in the playoffs, especially with the Phillies, that he's a tough out. This team is too stacked for the Mets right now. 4 good starters, 5 good bullpen arms, and a lineup that consistently hits, especially in the playoffs too. I think I don't want to predict a sweep either, so I'm going to say Phillies in 4. I think it's just too easy to say that.
Yeah, last year in the playoffs, Brandon Marsh had a 931 OPS.
Yeah,
like
really good.
And in his career, between his 2 playoff appearances, 805 OPS. I mean, that's kind of the depth in their lineup.
Yeah.
That you see right now.
Yeah, it's crazy. So let's jump over to the last series that we had, and that is the Dodgers and the Padres. So David, how do you see this one?
Well, the Dodgers are 98 win team. The Padres were 93 wins, right behind them. And the Padres have played a set here. The Dodgers, I picked against the other team that has been choking in the playoffs quite a bit in the Yankees. I'm debating whether I should should do that again. Still, I might not even have an answer for this one yet. I think this series goes 5 games. For one, the Padres are such a scrappy team. We saw it where even when the Braves did play their better baseball that they've played over the last couple of days that Matt talked about, the Padres were able to hold on. I really love the Padres bullpen too.
Yeah,
Tanner Scott, Robert Suarez. It's a good group that can definitely get it done. And that's a bunch of those guys were guys that Preller pulled over in the trade deadline. That are here to win and then move on, right? That's their goal. So, Fernando Tatis Jr. is really great. Manny Machado's, we talked about him in the preview series against the Braves. On the other side, I mean, we've talked about him all year. Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman. It's just an all-star lineup that, like I said earlier, didn't come out to play last postseason. And Freddie's dealing with a sprained ankle, and the Dodgers have dealt with pitching injuries all season, and their bullpen is, I would say, probably not as good, not as scary, maybe is the better way to put that. It's not as scary as the Padres bullpen. And I've been picking for the bullpens. I'm going to pick the Padres in 5. I think it's probably what Damien's probably happy. We don't want us to be out here jinxing the Padres or the Dodgers. We want to jinx the Padres, but I just think that this is a situation where it's very much a toss-up between 2 teams that are very familiar with each other, and I would even wager more so than the other 2 division rival matchups that we've already seen. Is that this is a group that are rivalries. Not only are they more familiar with each other, but there's also more animosity here. This is going to be a whale of a series. This is going to be must-watch TV. And also, I'm very angry that the Dodgers switched Yamamoto to Game 1 because I was very excited for Yamamoto versus Yu Darvish in Game 2. They robbed us of that. So therefore, the Padres are going to win. Dodgers lose. They should have kept Yamamoto in Game 2.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be an electric atmosphere in both places, I'm sure. This is a big rivalry, especially from the Padres side. And you're welcome, Damien, for me pointing that out. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be interesting. There's a few things about this that are, to me, stand out. One thing is that this year the Padres against right-handed pitching have been way better than they have been against left-handed pitching. And the Dodgers don't really have left-handed pitching, starting pitching at least. I mean, you got Yamamoto and you got Flaherty, and then who's starting the rest of their. I mean, it's kind of running into one of those things of last
Bobby
year.
Miller?
It's like who's starting Bobby Miller? I mean, he's been terrible this year.
It's going to be Bueller and then Knack. If they
oh my gosh!
Starters.
I mean, Bueller's been horrible, and Knack's a rookie who's been inconsistent. So, I mean, and obviously the Dodgers are going to manage this with those would probably be primarily bullpen games. But I just, the Dodgers are a team that has the high end offensive talent. They've got Ohtani. They've got we believe they're going to have Freddie Freeman back to being healthy, or at least relatively healthy. Mookie Betts. And then, you got your Will Smith and Teoscar. The bottom of their lineup can be a little bit shaky. And the Padres to me have a little bit of that feel of what the Phillies have had the last couple of years. They seem to just kind of this is really the first time in a while they've been healthy offensively, like in the playoffs. I mean, they were missing Fernando Tatis, a couple years ago when they were in the playoffs. Of course, last year they missed the playoffs. They've got the whole crew together right now, except for I guess it's Hassan Kim is
He's
not
out.
returning, right? Yeah, he's
Yeah, no,
out. So
he's out.
he's out. But I mean, you got your Xander Bogaerts, is a ton of postseason experience. You got Jackson
Machado
Merrill
does, too.
performed very well in his first couple postseason games. Machado, obviously, Tatis. Like, you've got guys here. Arias has some postseason experience. Um, I think the big question to me is with the Padres, the starting pitching is interesting because Joe Musgrove is going to have Tommy John surgery now after he was pulled in Game 2 against the Braves, which is unfortunate, and we wish the best for him. But that's going to impact things that you're going to have. The Game 1, Dylan Cease is lined up to start, which is fantastic for the Padres. Game 2, you're going to have, I believe, Yu Darvish
Yeah,
You.
you
for
Darvish
Game
is game
2.
two.
I mean, Game 3 will be Michael
So
King.
at Game 3, we have Michael King. So the question is, if you have a Game 4, who are you starting? And also with Yu Darvish, he's been out a lot this year. He just came back late in the season. How's he gonna do in this series? Is he kind of 100% right now? Is he like in a rhythm? Is he in a groove? It'll be interesting. So honestly, I feel like I gotta pick the Padres for real. Like, I think the Dodgers, just as a collection of talent, are a better team, but they have so many injuries in their pitching staff, and they've got that postseason history too. I do think a shorter series does favor the Dodgers because once you get to that third and fourth starter that you really need to start relying on after the division series, if you're in the championship series, that really becomes a problem. But it's not quite as big of a problem in a 5-game series where you do have the top guys in Game 1 and Game 2. And at some point, you feel like the Dodgers, with the way they've been the last few, at some point they're going to win playoff series, right? Like, I mean, this team's too good not to. And we've seen Ohtani rise to the occasion in playoff type games, although he's never played in a playoff game. But I gotta think that the Padres. I don't know. There's something about this series that makes me think the Padres are going to win in like 5 games. I don't think it's before that. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I'm going against my best judgment to not pick the Dodgers. I'll say that. My gut tells me the Dodgers end up winning one this year, but the Padres are very good, and I think they've been the best team in baseball in the second half of the season too. They've been incredible. So I'm going to go with the Padres.
Yeah, if you listened to our episode where we broke down those big series before the week that they were going to happen, the last week of the season there, I think you know where I'm going to go here. Looking at the season series as well, the Padres won it 8-5 over the Dodgers. And 2 of those wins for the Dodgers came in this last week where they were able to beat the Padres twice to clinch the division there. I think the Padres are a better team right now, because of the injuries. The injuries do matter. I mean, the Dodgers not having Tyler Glass now, they're not having Gavin Stone, probably not having Brusdar Graterol either, who just went out on the 9th, September 24th with shoulder inflammation. I don't think he'll be back for this series. It doesn't seem like. And then it's just the question marks around the rotation. Yamamoto's coming off his own injuries. He has had I think 3 or 4 starts. He's only went 5 innings once since that. Jack Flaherty, his velocity has dipped recently due to some mechanical issues and whatever, and he's actually been getting hit around more. Buehler's been better. Actually looked really good his last 4 or 5 starts, towards the old Walker Buehler again, and he steps up in big games. But again, is the Buehler we've seen for most of the year going to show back? Come back here now? You don't know. Knack's been inconsistent, and I honestly, this offense, it's very good at times, but at other times it's really bad. The last couple of postseason series, Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman have not showed up. Freddie is also dealing with a sprained ankle. Who knows what's going on with Mookie? Mookie stuff. Is he going to show up? Is he not? Teoscar, you kind of trust him a little bit. But Will Smith's had a down second half of the year. He hasn't been good either. This team can step up at times, but I just consistently think they've had one thorn in their side that they cannot get rid of. It's the San Diego Padres. Every time they play the Padres, I don't know. I said it when I did this preview series, or we did the preview to the last series. This team finds a way to lose against the Padres. They just do. I don't trust them to consistently be able to get out Fernando Tatis Jr., Manny Machado, Jackson Merrill, Xander Bogaerts, and Jake Cronenworth specifically. That guy is a Dodger killer. I swear, if you look at his history, he bats 3,000 off the Dodgers and hits like a grand slam every single time. Like that guy just hits the ball against them. And the one thing that I think also helps the Padres a lot against the Dodgers is their elite bullpen. And not just the fact that they have an elite bullpen, they have two to three elite left-handed relievers that they can use at any single time. They have Tanner Scott, you have Adrian Morejon, and Wandy Peralta and Yuki Matsui both this year have been really good against the Dodgers specifically. And you can put that against Shohei, against Freddie, against Muncy. That really stops three of the big bats in that Dodgers lineup. So a lot of people are going to say I'm trying to do the reverse jinx here, and you can say whatever you want here. But I honestly and truly do believe this. And if the Dodgers didn't have the injuries, it would be a little bit of a different story, right?
Definitely.
But I'm picking the Padres to sweep.
Whew.
Wow. Whew.
I think
no way I can do that, but man, I don't change anything on the graphic.
The Dodgers have not been able to consistently hit Dylan Cease or Yu Darvish, right? And if they lose both of those first two games with Yamamoto's inconsistencies, coming back from injury, Flaherty's, he's been rough the past couple starts. Then going into San Diego, you have to face Michael King, who you can't hit regardless, and Walker Buehler starting there. I do not trust this team the way right now with the injuries. And I want to preface that by saying with the injuries. If they were healthy, I think this is a much better series and a much different result. I bet it probably goes 5. Yeah. But the way this team is right now, I just don't, especially with Freddie's ankle, I just don't trust that they are going to be able to do it. So I'm going to say Padres sweep.
It's rare that Damien convinces me that the Padres that something like that's going to happen. But boy, that sounds like it's going to happen, doesn't it?
Yeah, I want to add something to what Damien was talking about with the lefty relievers. This year, Mookie Betts, who's the big right-handed guy in the lineup, has reverse splits. It's not a huge reverse split, but it is a reverse split. His WRC plus has been like 7 points higher against righties than it has lefties. So those lefty relievers you're talking about, that could be a big deal. It's gonna be interesting for sure. So.
Yeah, and just to add on, because it literally just popped up on my phone right now, so I think it helps preference in his. They were just talking to Freddie Freeman, and he said if this was the regular season, I would have missed 4 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
Here's Freddie's. Yikes.
In the lineup.
I'll say one thing: as somebody who has watched Freddie Freeman for his entire career, Freddie Freeman will play games where he's injured that it's detrimental to the team. He did it in the playoffs in 2019. He had a torn up wrist and he played anyways and he couldn't hit. And it was a mess. And he will do this where he says, "Oh, I can play him." He's a tough guy. He's one of the toughest players around. He never takes days off.
No.
But he will do it in detriment to the team, thinking that he's trying to help the team. But it's not a criticism of Freddie, but it's one of those things where it's like, is he gonna hurt the team by playing? I mean, he might Kirk Gibson and hit a walk-off home run and limp around the bases or something, but like, it's one of those things. It's gonna be interesting to see, and we've seen it. I mean, yesterday, like that might have cost the Brewers the series against the Mets. That William Contreras was limping around on the base paths.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Yordan Alvarez was limping around against the Tigers. That could have cost the Astros. So. I know that, with him being a big left-handed power bat that plays first base, you might think that, just the injury is not that big of a deal, but it could be a big deal. So
yeah. I was looking to try to see who will replace Musgrove as the Padres' 4th starter. The options
issue.
are going to
Yeah.
be either Matt Waldron or Martin Perez.
It will be Martin Perez because he absolutely dominated the Dodgers after they were acquired.
I think they're going to use Martin Perez against the Dodgers if they get that far.
Waldron got lit up a couple times by
I was
the
going to
Dodgers
say throwing knuckleballs in the postseason is just an
recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's just asking for something bad to happen.
And the issue for Waldron is he's got like a 90.0 mile an hour fastball.
Oh,
and he's got actually a really good sweeper.
Yeah.
Waldron's not just a knuckleball.
Right. It's
like
different from your classic ones, but it's like just you get a runner on the base paths. Guys are more aggressive. You throw a knuckleball that gets away from the catcher, which happens like once an inning, and it could end up being a mess. So it's just tough in the postseason with a guy who throws a lot of knuckleballs, even if he's not a primary knuckleballer type guy.
The advantage, of course, that the Padres will also have is that they went and acquired Brian Hoeing on top of Tanner Scott from the Marlins. Hoeing can throw multiple innings.
Yeah, he can.
He's got more. He's averaging more than 1 inning per appearance with the Padres, so I think he will factor into that game as well.
Yeah, he's the guy that came in from Musgrove in game 2.
All of the guys in their bullpen can go 1+ innings.
Yeah, this is a very good bullpen. It's well built, and we rag on AJ Preller all the time, but AJ Preller saw the future on us here and went out and bought a really good bullpen at the deadline.
So I think this is going to go to a replay of the 2022 NLCS between the Phillies and the Padres.
Matt, what were your games for this series? Did you have 5?
I said 5. I think the Dodgers are going to find a way. I mean, the Dodgers with those stars, they're going to find a way to win a game or two here, I think. I mean, there's going to be a game that Shohei takes over. I mean, there's going to be one, or Mookie. Like, they're going to have a game where they take over. It's just going to be a matter of, like, you can't rely on 2 guys to do everything the entire series. And against a team like this Padres team, like we were talking about it with the Yankees earlier, I think you can rely on the Yankees because they're playing the Royals, and if they score 2 runs, the way the Royals' offense is right now, like you've got a good chance to win. But you gotta have to score more than that to beat the Padres, especially with this pitching staff. So they're gonna have to get contributions from guys all down the lineup to win this series, and I just don't know that that's gonna happen. And I don't know that it's even matters because the Padres are gonna score a lot of runs. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that will wrap up our predictions part of the episode. We wanted just to hit real quick because it's a big story that Terry Francona was announced as the Reds manager yesterday, last night / this morning. We want to talk a lot more about that. We'll have to do that on our next episode, but we wanted to mention it because he did retire last year due to health issues, and now he has come back. This came out of nowhere. We hadn't even heard the Reds interviewed anyone, and all of a sudden he was hired. I guess he stays in the state of Ohio, going from the Guardians to the Reds. But we will dive a lot deeper into that on Monday. We are still going to do our normal Monday episode, normal time and everything, and we'll spend some time talking about what kind of the games that have happened so far. But then we want to talk about this instance, and then we've had another thing. A couple other management things go on with the Twins GM left, and we want to talk more about the Buster situation. So that's a lot more to talk about there. But anything else you guys want to hit on right quick before we head out?
I don't think so. We'll talk about a lot of this stuff on Monday. I guess Monday will be kind of a hybrid of talking about the playoffs and talking about some of the big picture upcoming off-season type stuff. A couple other little stories this week. There was a big Bally story with all the RSNs that happened this week. We'll talk about that on Monday. Obviously, Terry Francona, the thing that Damien hinted at was the Twins general manager is being replaced. It was kind of I think it was technically a mutual parting of ways is what they called it. So that'll be something to look out for on Monday for our episode. But yeah, I'm excited for some baseball, big games. I am going to be heading to Italy on Thursday, so I'm going to miss a lot of the Division Series and Championship Series, which is unfortunate. Well, I mean, it's not unfortunate that I'm going to Italy because it'll be fun, but
yeah, that's sick.
Missing the baseball part is unfortunate. So I'll be with y'all on Monday, and we'll be ready to watch as much baseball as I can. So
the all-time postseason leader in home runs is Manny Ramirez with 29. In the top 5 include Kyle Schwarber, who is
Yeah.
playing this week.
Is Aaron?
I'm going to keep hammering that home.
Where's the?
Aaron Judge is 28th with 13 career postseason home runs.
Where's Altuve?
He is second with 27,
okay.
and he's already been kicked out.
Yeah. This
But
year, but
Kyle Schwarber is one of the best all-time performers in the
Yeah.
postseason. He has half the games played above as those guys above him. It's like Derek Jeter, Bernie Williams, Manny Ramirez, and Jose Altuve. Kyle Schwarber is one of the most successful, David Ortiz, postseason performers of all time. Starting with that comeback in the 2016 World Series, and since he's won just the one World Series, I guess. But the Phillies' goal here this year is go win a World Series. Bryce Harper's been talking about it. That's been Dave Dombrowski's goal this whole time. I am keeping my eyes on this Phillies team because if they come out very, very business-like, I would be very concerned if I were both the Dodgers and the Padres, and then whoever's in the AL. The Phillies to me look like the team right now, and I'm saying keep your eye on Kyle Schwarber because, if he has a crazy run, we've seen him have a crazy postseason home run binge. If he has a crazy run, he can be second all time in postseason home runs shortly.
Yeah, the Phillies do have a lot of good postseason performers like him.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
So that's my closing thought: is you might get to watch some history if you're keeping your eyes on the Phillies this year, this season, this postseason.
Well, we will keep track of it all, and we'll keep you informed. And we will be back next Monday to tell you what's going on and dive some deeper into some of these bigger stories that we've had happen. But thank you guys for tuning in, and we will catch you guys back on Monday.